In the previous theory video, we studied key signatures in the context of major scales with sharps, and we saw that their advantages justify learning them. In this new video, we will continue with the study of the key signatures of the major scales with flats. This new study is based on the same basis as the previous one, so this video will be more concise. As a reminder, the display shows all major scales that use sharps, and all major scales that use flats. Remember that the key signatures are the indication, immediately after the clef, of the notes of the scale that have accidentals, so that when transcribing a melody you work with a cleaner staff. As in the previous video, we begin our exposition by highlighting once again the convenience of the use of key signatures. To do so, we consider the transcription of the first musical phrase of the same melody used in the previous video, My Melancholy Baby, by Ernie Burnett, but now in the major key of E-flat. The E-flat major scale and the transcription of this musical phrase are shown on the screen using the TablEdit music editing program. See the remarks about this program in the description. Note that apart from the flats corresponding to the E-flat major scale, enclosed in a green circle, there are other accidentals that nuance and give interest to this melody. This phrase will be reproduced below. Pay attention to the following. On the first beat of the second measure we have the note of flat, which corresponds to the fourth degree of the E-flat major scale. And on the first beat of the next measure we use the F minor chord, built on the second degree of this scale. In the family of chords corresponding to the major key of E-flat, given in our associated website, whose link is given in the description, it is indicated that the transition to this chord is normally performed with the C7th chord, whose notes are C, E, G, and is sharp, but on the first beat of the second measure the note of flat, G sharp, is used instead of the note G. The note G sharp corresponds to the augmented fifth degree of the C major scale, therefore the chord C7th with augmented fifth is used. On the third beat of this measure, the note G is used, therefore, the C7th chord is used. TablEdit is then instructed that the melody to be played is in the major key of E-flat, so this program incorporates, immediately after the treble clef, the indication that all the notes B, E, and A will be flat unless otherwise specified. As we already said, the set of notes added after a key to indicate the alterations corresponding to a scale is what is called key signature, and in this particular case it corresponds to the key signature for the major key of E-flat. Note that the use of the key signature has greatly simplified the writing of the melody. Naturals are used for the note A in the first measure and the note E in the third measure because these notes do not correspond to the scale. The melody is then played again. The audio of this playback will be identical to that of the playback without key signature, and will allow you to observe again the musical effect produced by the notes that are not part of the scale. These types of experiences will prepare you to be able to make your own arrangements of melodies in the future, primary objective of this channel. Next, we list again the advantages that the analysis of this musical phrase in D major, given in the previous video about key signatures for scales that use sharps, and the analysis in E-flat major in this new example, have allowed us to observe in the use of key signatures. Key signatures allow, in conjunction with other factors to be considered later, the quick determination of the key in which a melody is written. When using key signatures, the accidentals that do not belong to the scale remain on the staff, so they can be easily detected. Usually these accidentals add interest to the melody and suggest an enrichment of the harmonization. In the statement of the first of the advantages of key signatures, we used the term allow instead of indicate. This is because, as we saw in the video on the generation of natural minor scales, they have the same set of accidentals as their corresponding relative major scales, since they have the same notes. Later we will see how to establish whether the melody transcribed with a given key signature is in a major or minor key. The advantages of the use of key signatures just mentioned justify making the necessary effort to become familiar with them. In the following we will describe the method of interval counting adapted to the case of scales with flats in order to achieve this familiarization, but first it is convenient to review again the list of all major scales that use flats. Note that, as we already mentioned, the increasing order of the number of flats is obtained by generating each new scale starting from the fifth degree descending from the previous scale, that is, 7 semitones from its tonic. It is also known that the flat added by each new scale is located on its fourth degree, subdominant. Note and remember the following: the names of the scales third and up are given by the flat note introduced in the previous scale. This detail would allow us to quickly identify a scale from its key signature. This list could be used to familiarize yourself with the key signatures with flats, but since it contains more information than necessary, since it shows the staves that contain the notes and their alterations for each scale, it is advisable to prepare a simple table that collects the information limited to key signatures. Below we will show how to generate this table without having to have this list. The screen shows the representation of the palm of a left hand, used for counting intervals, and the key signature table for major scales with sharps that was obtained in the previous video. At the bottom of the screen an empty table is shown, in which we will enter the details of the key signatures for the different major scales with flats. To fill in this table we will count descending intervals of a fifth that are obtained by starting on the note C. Let's begin. C, B, A, G, F. It has been determined that the interval of a fifth that starts on the note C ends on the note F. Now, since the descending interval between the note C and B is 1 semitone, and the intervals between the notes B and A, and G and F are 1 tone, we have in total 7 semitones, an interval of a perfect fifth. The new scale will then be the major scale of F, whose note corresponding to the fourth degree is the B flat, so we will place a flat on the third line of the staff, corresponding to the note B. Let's continue with determining the descending perfect fifth interval that begins on the note F. F, E, D, C, B. It has been determined that the interval of a fifth starting on the note F ends on the note B. Now, since the descending intervals between the notes F and E, and C and B, are of 1 semitone, and the intervals between the notes E and D and C, are of 1 tone, we have in total 6 semitones, an interval of diminished fifth, so the note B flat must be used to have the perfect fifth interval. The new scale will then be the B flat major scale, whose note corresponding to the fourth degree is E flat, so we will place a flat on the fourth space of the staff, corresponding to the note E flat. The process described can be continued in the same way, until determining the key signatures of the 7 major scales that use flats. At the bottom of the screen is the resulting table at the end of the described process. It is expected that, in order to solidify your concepts, you will repeat the method described here until you feel comfortable during its application to major scales using sharps and major scales using flats. Eventually you will be able to directly generate the key signature corresponding to any key. The purpose of this video, as well as that of the video on key signatures for major scales with sharps, was to prepare you for 2 fundamental tasks. The first is that, given the key signature in the transcription of a melody, you can quickly identify the key in which the melody is written. In the case of major scales using sharps, the key is given by the note that is 1 semitone above the last altered note of the key signature, and in the case of major scales using flats, by the penultimate altered note of the key signature. The second task consists of generating, without the need for consultation, the key signature of the key in which you wish to arrange a melody. You are provided with a simple method to perform this second task. In the following theory video we will look at the use of key signatures in minor scales, and in the future we will consider again the determination of key signatures using a different approach, in a video dedicated to studying the relationship between the analogy of the clock, key signatures, and the circle of fifths. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it.